All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. I want to give double honors to our apostles and our elders of Great Millstone that rule well. And peace and salutations and many blessings to all you elect Akim, kicking this word in sincerity and in truth, all you beloved brethren. This is Brother Sha'ar from the Great Millstone Dallas camp. And I just wanted to do a quick in-transit on my way home from camp. And as you know, just reading a few of Paul's letters, just going into those, there's a lot of key things that stick out, especially once you read Paul's letters, understanding the things he was going through at that time, why he wrote what he wrote at those specific times. It makes you understand what he was actually going through mentally. All right. When you read Paul's letters, certain ones you got to understand. And for the ones that don't understand, you got to understand that he was on the verge of death when he wrote some of those letters. Like, for example, here in the Philippians, what I'm about to read here, but when he wrote this letter to that church, one, that was one of his favorite churches. They pretty much helped him out the most out of a lot of the other churches. And also, too, he was held captive in Rome around this time. This is when you read Acts the 28th chapter, when he was getting ready to go to Jerusalem. And the ones that followed him, that were with him, told him not to go, because he was going to pretty much be put to death. They're going to try to kill him. And Paul was in the spirit. Paul was a man that didn't fear death. Even if when you read Philippians, the first chapter, he said to die is gain. That way he'd be closer with Yahweh Shai. So when you read these things, you have to understand. If you don't, have to understand the things that he was going through and why he wrote those things and what he actually meant when he made certain statements to the church. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to read is First Philippians. The first thing I'm going to read is Philippians, the 3rd chapter. And I'm going to start at the 11th verse. Because when you read these next few verses that's going into, he's talking as one who's not to glory about the stuff that he goes through. He's talking about one that already doesn't have possession of the kingdom, but one that is willing to be a fellow partaker within the afflictions that Yahweh Shai had mentioned that we was going to have to go through. And then mentions once you go through these things, then you'll receive the greater gifts of what's to come. But ultimately, we got to go through these things while we're here on this side. Okay? It says in Sirach 4:28, strive for the truth unto death. Okay? And Paul stressed this a lot, especially when you read this letter. He was a man that was striving for the truth unto death. All the apostles, Yahweh Shai first and foremost, but under him, all the apostles were men that strove for the truth unto death, and they died witnessing. The only one that didn't die that we could think of is John the Revelator, and he died in jail in the island of Patmos. So Paul would make mention of these things. Paul was one to welcome the affliction that was to come. In order to receive righteousness, we know that we have to catch these things, and Paul would stress that. Okay, so this is Philippians chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 11, and it reads, if by any means I might attain unto the resurrection of the dead, not as though I had already attained, either were already perfect, but I follow after. If I may, Salakia, if that I may apprehended that for which also I am apprehended of Yahweh Shai Mashiach, brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended. And when you go into that word apprehended, it means to grasp or attain. Okay, let's go into this word really quick. Give me one sec, Baba Kasha. It means to lay hold of, like when the police get you, you know what I'm saying? They say you're apprehended. It means to lay hold of. All right, to seize upon, take possession of. Okay, so none of us have full possession of being the elect. All right, we don't have this thing apprehended. Okay, that's why Paul was saying, brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended. We still got a lot of things we got to go through. It's still a lot more hell to catch. All right, the little infirmities you got to your bodies, whatever the case might be, we know that's part of the territory. That was part of the ground when we had signed this contract. But it's a lot more just to come. And we got to make sure that we're able to endure all these things. And also, too, like Paul, the example, as writing here, to welcome it. Bring it on. Now, of course, easier said than done. But when you can have that mindset of that and be able to actually physically endure through those hardships, You deserve the crown. And that's how the elect are going to be crowned ultimately. Ones that had actually went through it. That's how you apprehend it. You have to go through it first. Okay? So I'm going to continue. It says, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before. Okay? Forgetting all the things that you've done in the world, even certain things you've done in the truth. Certain things you might be physically going through, whether it be mentally or physically, infirmity wise. It's a lot of things that we got that with our blood, or Yahweh's blood already, pretty much reconciled us. But like it's written, we got to put ourselves on the line too. We got to make ourselves as a living sacrifice, where that we are an altar. And we got to make sure that the sacrifice we're doing is a right sacrifice. We got to make sure through the Spirit that we're those lambs without blemish, But I'm gonna proceed in verse. Let's see what verse I left off on. In verse 14, and this is the key point why I wanted to bring this out of Philippians 3. It reads, I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of the Most High in Yahawashi HaMashiach. Now, when you go into this word press, man, it's beautiful. There's a chariot outside right now as I'm in the car. It's a chariot, man. Call Allah Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. That word there is
Strong's G 1377. Dioko.
Okay. So when you go into that word dioko, it's a verb, and it means to make, to run or flee, put to flight, drive away, to run swiftly in order to catch a person or thing. And what's this thing? Ultimately, it's the kingdom. Okay, like and I'm gonna bring it out, Lord willing. But the Apostle Paul would always bring out the analogy of running a marathon or whatever the case is, to run toward the mark. Okay, to run toward the standard that's set, to continually fight. That's what Paul was going into, to press toward the mark, to flee towards it, man. There's nothing that's down here, man. Whatever little shit that you got going on, this thing ain't about us, man. There's a bigger picture involved through the little stuff that you're going through. And all of it is to complete the story of the elect, if you're those men that are chosen. Okay? That's all it is, to suffer the sufferings that Yahweh suffered through. Because he told us that we was going to have to go through it. All right? And just like how he had ran towards it and strove for the truth unto death, finished his course, we're going to have to go through the same exact thing, brothers. I'm going to continue. It says, to press on figuratively, or one who is in a race, run swiftly to reach a goal. Okay? So we're running swiftly to reach a goal, man. Now, there's certain brothers that might run a little faster than you. There's certain brothers that might run a little bit slower to you. But whatever whatever measure Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai had gave you to run it at your all and do the best that you can do until you get to the end of the line. Okay? Because as the apostles always, as they've been mentioning, we're at the end, brothers. We're at the very end. So this thing, we got to press more. We got to press toward the high calling of Yahweh Shai Mashiach, man. But I got one more scripture I'm going to go to. Let me see here. I'm going to just type I think it's in 1 Corinthians 9. But I'm going to just do it like this. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. This is 1 Corinthians 9. I'm going to start at verse 22. Okay? And it reads, to the weak I am become as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. Okay, so Paul was what you would consider a man of Renaissance. A Renaissance man that was able to do all things pretty much. Through the Spirit, of course. But he was all things to all men. He would, if he had to slow it down, if he had to speak the worldly scenarios to worldly people to get it and grasp the full understanding, he would do it. That's why it's written in what we had just read, I am all things unto all men. Okay? Verse 23 says, and this I do for the gospel's sake, that I might be partaker thereof with you. Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? So run that ye may obtain. And that's that mark that we got to press for, man. Like we just read here in Philippians, the 3rd chapter, to press toward the mark. And when you go into that word, diosa, it means to run or race as you have a prize ahead of you. And we know the prize is ahead of us, man. So don't go to the left or the right. All right. You got to take the straight gate, because when you go into a race, it's a beginning point and it's a finishing point. You know, if you expect to go to these other places, man, you'll end up being distracted and forget what you was racing for, man. Whatever the case is, and if you got to make a pit stop to get gas or get an air, whatever the case is, as long as it's beneficial to the body, as long as it's beneficial to the race that you're running through the spirit, do it, man. This ain't a race of finishing. I mean, you know, of course we got a prize, but like the apostles mentioned, man, it ain't about trying to come in first place. The goal is to finish it. That's the goal, to finish the race. This is a marathon. All right. There's going to be 144,000 men and a large number of other ones that are going to win the race. And it's going to be in a lot of different orders. But those men are going to receive benefits from it. Those men and their families that believe. OK, that's what's going to happen, man. There's so much ahead of us within this race. So much. The kingdom is right in front of us, man. But what do we got to do? We got to continue to stride towards it. All right. Verse 25 says, and every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible crown. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly. All right. You ain't supposed to be wavering in this thing. When you run, you know that what your destination is, and you know the proper procedures in order to reach your destination. You know the amounts of water that you have to drink. You know not to overdo it. You know not to underdo it. Okay? That's why he says in the next part of this verse, so fight I, not as one that beats the air. Because when you're shadow boxing, there's nothing hitting you back. There's nothing hitting you back once you shadow box. So you ain't going to gain no type of experience doing that until you step in the ring with somebody that's experienced. And you're going to get lumped. You're going to get hit. You're going to get your ass beat sometimes, maybe. But if you're able to prevail at the end, that's all that matters. And best believe, one who wins a fight that went through a tough battle will appreciate that fight more than an easy ass fight. Okay? And it's written, this ain't no easy fight. Now we know our burden is easy and our yoke is light, because Yahushua did the ultimate sacrifice for us. But we still got stuff we have to do that's down here as well. Okay, we ain't fighting like we beating the air. That ain't gonna gain. You ain't gonna gain nothing from that, man. Just some strong muscles. But once you put in front of somebody that actually know what the hell they doing, and their muscles might not be as big as yours, they got that experience, you're gonna get whacked. You know, we run as one that fights, not as one that beats the air. Okay? And this is the last verse in verse 27. But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. Put yourself last. All right? This thing is about feeding the flock. This thing is about edifying the sheep. And if you got to be in a certain position in order to do it, to get to certain brothers as believers, hey, man, you might have to do it, man. With different brothers, you might be able to teach certain ways. With other brothers, you might have to teach more simple to. Whatever the case is, do it, man. At the end of the day, you're doing the will of Yahushua, because it's written in John, the 21st chapter. He commanded us to feed his sheep. And that's a commandment. And that's what we have to do. So feeding the sheep, of course, you have to, you got to feed them, give them the word, but also, too, be that example to them. Be that example to them, so when they watch, they can see how to conduct themselves being a man of the Lord. Feed the sheep. Don't talk of somebody that's already attained it. We got the truth that's beautiful, but we don't have the kingdom yet. We know the kingdom of heaven is within, all right? But at any time, the Lord could deliver us up to a reprobate mind. But as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, studying, teaching, being charitable, most importantly, the Lord will grant you these things and he'll increase you. Okay? He'll give you the power to continue to run in the race, because the longer you run in the race, the harder it might get. The harder it might get. But the more endurance you'll build up, the better your lungs will get, the stronger your legs will get, and you'll have more accolades or assets in order to finish the race. I'm going to finish it off on this verse actually right here. Turn my car off. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 8. And it reads, better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. And the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Okay. So that was the key point in the beginning of verse 8. Better is the end of the thing than the beginning thereof. You can start a race off going full speed, hauling ass, bro. But just because you start off fast don't mean you're going to finish fast. Now, if you start off fast, that's cool. As long as you're able to keep that pace, hey, do what you do, you know. But everybody can start off the blocks going full speed, man. But who can finish going full speed? It ain't too many people that's going to finish going full speed. Certain people can start off the blocks going full speed, maybe slowing their pace down, but they going to finish it. And that takes a lot of hard work and effort. All right. Not everybody's going to be able to do that. All right. As long as you're able to finish it, that's more important than starting it. When you start this thing, know the truth. You're excited about it. You're fervent about it. But then you got to learn about all the things you got to mortify and the things you got to change about yourself in order to proceed, man. As part of that goal being tried in the fire, working on yourself, man. And that's all what it boils down to, man. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning. But run your race. Run your race. Shalom.